Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a story out of Montreal that, frankly, has a lot of people scratching their heads.
It really does.
They're talking about the city's housing and homelessness crisis,
Uh-huh.
but with a really unexpected new player.
Major real estate developers, the ones usually building luxury condos, they're now stepping right into the social housing sector.
Which is just, it's a huge shift.
It's a fundamental change in strategy. Usually this is a fight for the public sector, for community groups.
Right.
But now you have these very powerful private companies getting involved. And they aren't just, writing a check. They're building partnerships to deliver supportive housing.
And that word supported, that's so important here, isn't it?
It's everything.
We aren't just talking about four walls and a roof.
Exactly. This is about creating an environment where people can actually get stable, where you blend the housing with social services to help people, get back on their feet for good.
So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack that. We'll look at how this is working, the shocking cost savings they're talking about, and also some of the big questions being raised.
And to really get it, you have to start with the one project that made everyone sit up and pay attention, the one they announced late in 2025.
The so-called shock project.
That's the one.
The name itself sounds like it's meant to be a jolt to the system. So what was the commitment? What did they put on the table?
The goal was aggressive, and it was aimed squarely at the most visible part of the crisis. They committed to delivering 2,500 social housing units.
2,500.
Yep.
Just to put that into perspective, that's a number that would normally take the public system years to produce.
Years, exactly. And this was announced almost overnight.
And who are the players behind this? Are we talking about big names?
Oh, yeah. At least 3 major real estate firms. The main spokesperson for the group is Vincent Chiara, the president of Group Mach. So these are serious players.
But the real story here, the real shock, if you will, isn't just the number of units. It's how they propose to do it.
That's the core of it. They didn't just bid on a contract. They basically said, let us act as the consultant and the builder. Let us run this.
And the reason is,
Yeah.
they claim they can do it for dramatically less money than the government can.
And this is where it gets really explosive. That cost comparison is the political dynamite in this whole thing.
Okay, so let's get to the numbers. What do they estimate?
For those 2,500 units, they put the total price tag at about $300 million.
Okay.
But the number that really matters, the one that made everyone's jaw drop, was the construction cost per square foot. They based their whole model on about $400 per square foot.
$400. Now, I've seen the budgets for public projects,
Mm-hmm.
and that sounds incredibly low. What's the government's typical cost for something comparable?
Well, the sources we have show it's not even close. Government construction costs in that area often go past $900 per square foot.
900.
Over 900.
So you're telling me it's more than double the cost. For every square foot built, the public pays an extra $500.
At least. It's a massive discrepancy. And it just forces you to ask the question, where's all that extra money going?
What is that extra $500 paying for?
It's a mix of things, really. Systemic issues. You've got layers of bureaucratic red tape, long, drawn-out tendering processes.
Which means material costs can go up while you're waiting.
Exactly. You also have very rigid union requirements and the simple fact that public decision-making is slow. These developers can get capital and contractors moving much, much faster.
So they're basically selling speed, an expensive bypass around all that government inefficiency.
Yeah.
And they don't actually want to be in the social housing business long term, right?
That's the deal they've laid out. Their whole model is built on speed. Build the units and then immediately hand the keys over to the government, either the city or the province.
They build the pipeline, the government manages it.
Precisely. They are not going to be the landlords. It's about a rapid solution for people who are visibly homeless right now.
Okay, so that handles the supply side, getting the buildings up. But like we said at the start, that's almost the easy part.
Right.
For this to actually work, you need ongoing care. And that means a pretty complex financial ecosystem has to be in place.
It's like a 3-legged stool. All 3 legs have to be strong or the whole thing just collapses and the initial investment is basically wasted.
All right, let's break down that stool. Leg 1 is the private sector. We've got that. They bring the building expertise, the speed, the cost savings. What's the second leg?
That's the public sector, the government. This is where the subsidies come from, federal and provincial programs that keep the lights on and the rent affordable.
Like the Reaching Home program.
Exactly. That's a major one on the federal side. Remember, the government has a goal to cut chronic homelessness in half by 2028. That's backed by billions of dollars. So that money is the financial engine for the day-to-day operations.
So the government pays for the building to stay open and affordable. But the money for the human support, the actual caseworkers and counselors, that's a different bucket of money, isn't it?
It is, and that's the third leg of the stool, and you could argue it's the most critical one, the community sector.
Nonprofits, foundations.
Right. Organizations like Centraid, their funding is specifically for the support services, the counseling, the job training, the mental health support. Without this piece, the supportive part of supportive housing disappears.
It's interesting that the whole thing really hinges on that third leg, which often has the least stable long-term funding. But the reason the developers are even in this conversation is speed. Why is moving fast so critical right now?
Because the current system is basically at a standstill. It's gridlocked. The traditional path to low-rent public housing, the HLM system, is, well, it's catastrophically slow.
How slow are we talking?
The data from FRAPRU, that's the main housing action group, is pretty stark. They report that in Montreal, there are over 160,000 households on the waiting list for an HLM.
160,000. And what's the average wait time?
5 years.
5 years. For someone on the street today, 5 years is. It's a lifetime. It might as well be never.
It is an eternity. So when these developers come in and say, we can do it in months, they're not just building houses. They are forcing a pace that the public sector seems completely unable to match.
They're acting as a catalyst.
Exactly. But it's really important to see their project not as the solution, but as one very big piece of a much larger puzzle. There are other things happening across Montreal.
That's a vital point. This has to add to what's already working, not replace it.
Yeah.
So what are some of those other pieces?
Well, the city of Montreal itself has been experimenting with smaller, really innovative projects. A key one is the use of modular housing.
Okay, I've seen these. They're like temporary, prefabricated units.
They are temporary, but what defines them is the intensive social support that comes with them.
So how many people are we talking about in these modular sites?
It's a smaller scale. Each site holds about 30 people, so you're looking at maybe 90 beds total across the city in places like Ahuntsic-Cartierville and Côte-de-Neige.
But the key is the support model.
It's 24/7 support run by incredible organizations like the Old Brewery Mission. This isn't just a bed for the night. It's a supervised, managed transition program with the goal of getting people into permanent housing and a job.
And the city is actually funding this model directly.
Yes, there's a commitment of over $25 million by 2028 for these kinds of measures. And that's on top of older programs like the LSA, the Supported Housing Program.
What's the track record of the LSA?
Over the years, it's helped create more than 600 units of supportive housing, always in partnership with nonprofits and the Provincial Housing Authority. So the model is proven. When you combine housing with support, it works.
And we're also seeing projects that are tailored for specific communities, which is so important.
Absolutely essential. Groups like Projets Autochtones du Québec are developing housing that is culturally specific for the Indigenous population because their needs and the roots of their homelessness are unique.
Right.
And you even see smaller prevention efforts, like a few dozen new units here and there for people who are just at risk of losing their homes.
So if you put it all together, the developers aren't inventing a new idea. They're just bringing massive scale to a concept that the community sector has been proving for years.
That's the perfect way to put it. They bring the construction muscle, but they're plugging into a system of social care that already exists.
Which brings us to the critics, because not everyone is convinced this is a silver bullet.
Not at all. And this is where that tension between speed and vulnerability really comes into focus.
Let's go back to FRAPRU, the Housing Action Group.
Yeah.
What's their main worry about a project like this?
Their concern is all about selection. Who gets into these new units?
Why?
They warn that when a project is all about speed and cost efficiency, this $400 a foot model, it naturally risks targeting, the less complex cases.
What do you mean by less complex? Why would speed favor that?
Well, think about the support needs. A less complex case might be someone who lost their job and needs some counseling and a stable address. But someone with very intensive needs might be dealing with severe long-term mental illness and serious addiction at the same time. They need on-site medical staff, secure facilities, specialized services.
Things that cost more money and require more space. Things you probably don't design for in a rapid, cost-optimized building.
Exactly. The fear is that the solution is perfect for helping people on the edge, which is great. But it might leave behind the most vulnerable people, the ones with the most profound challenges, because their needs are too expensive for this model.
which means the cost savings on construction don't matter if the person just ends up back on the street a year later because the support wasn't right for them.
And that's the whole point. The success of these 2,500 new units will depend entirely on the quality of the social support that follows, paid for by the government and community sectors.
And that support needs funding. Real, dedicated funding.
Right, and we are seeing some of that. Quebec put an extra $9.7 million into the Montreal region recently. The feds announced $50 million for Quebec projects through Reaching Home. That money is what pays the salaries of the people who do the actual work of preventing relapse.
So if we pull this all together, the developer's involvement feels like a necessary shock to the system. It puts a glaring spotlight on that efficiency gap, that $400 versus $900 number.
They're a force multiplier for construction, no doubt. They're a catalyst where the state has been too slow. They provide the first thing everyone needs, a safe place to sleep.
But the real success, the long-term impact, that doesn't depend on the builder. It depends on the quality of the support that comes after the ribbon is cut. The building is just the shell.
The support is the lifeblood.
So the private sector has offered this incredibly efficient service, and it forces a real conversation about how we build public projects. But this also leaves a really critical question for you, the listener, to think about.
We all agree we need speed. People are suffering on the streets right now. But if that speed, if that cost efficiency, means your project can only really help the less complex cases, what's the trade-off?
Is that massive speed up worth it if it means the most chronically homeless, the people with the deepest challenges, might be left behind because this new, fast infrastructure can't accommodate their needs?
What is the real cost of comprehensive care versus the cost of just getting units built quickly? That's the incredibly difficult balance that cities everywhere are trying to solve.
It makes you wonder if scaling up quickly means you have to, at least at first, scale down the complexity of the problem you're trying to solve.
That's the core ethical question here.
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We hope this gave you a clearer view of the surprising forces at play in Montreal's fight against homelessness.